until you got here. So, but so that was how I got to work in the administration in Wilmette. And when Mr. Mitchell was eventually elected to the House of Justice, why, he said, well, you'll have to move to Haifa now, you see, to... So
he didn't want to part with it.
But as it turned out, I had been offered a job in Haifa already, you see, and it wasn't working for him, so... But it turned out that I went to Haifa first, and then he came, and I didn't work for him there. It was interesting, but...
You were working with Mr. Kavlin when you got there?
Another House member,
Yeah,
Laura Kavlin, was looking for an aide, and they wanted me to work for him. So that's where I did. I went to work with Mr. Kavlin, and that was my first job there. Eventually, I was asked to organize the convention.
Well, first you began to also help to reorganize the Secretariat because the need at the World Center just kept getting greater and greater within a relative short time, so that there was a constant adjustment to be able to meet all the demands. And,
well, the way it was working when I went there,
you became the coordinator.
There were 9 House members, and each of them had their own system of working. And there were like 3 aides that worked for 9 House members. And each House member wanted to do one thing one way, one do the other way. So what I did is I sat down and I wrote a policy manual, so that put some procedures so that they would all be working the same way as far as the correspondence was concerned, and the signatures, and that's good. So I helped create their first policy manual in the Secretariat. And because I was able to do that, they said, you should be able to do conventions as well. So next thing I knew, I was helping to organize the international convention.
Wow.
And the interesting thing is I had no real experience for conventions. But I found that in the faith, if you're available and working well what you're doing, that you might be thrown into something entirely different. And you somehow manage to do it and learn, and it seems to work out. I've seen it happen over and over again, different people coming from different parts of their backgrounds, and yet doing something entirely different and doing it well. So you're challenged in that way. You know, you may not work in your own field. That's it. So after that, well, I was there for 16 years. Yeah, and I did different things. I worked for as an aide to Mr. Kavlin. Then when he retired, I worked as an aide to Mr. Tarzadeh. And after that, I coordinated the Secretariat. Then I did the coordinated international conventions. So there were always challenges. And finally, I wrote in the policy manual that people from at the World Center should retire at 70, you see. And I was approaching 70.
She was preparing her own retirement.
But there were several people there that were over 70, and they should have retired, you know. But there was no
policy.
there was no procedure or policy for getting them to retire. And these people had been there a long time, and there was nothing in place. So I thought, well, I'm going to be 70. I'm going to write the policy and see if I can get it approved, which I did. I wrote it, I got it approved, and then all of us 70 pluses were let go. So we were free to retire, and that's what we did. So some were actually 80 already. You know, they were on their way. It was a wonderful experience.
But it was hard work.
It was,
I mean,
it was all work.
It's just amazing how much work was done with almost no no problems really, considering how complex the whole system was. Because I would go there and I would see that they were like, it was like a beehive. And yet it ran very smoothly. And if it didn't, none of us ever knew about it, because they tended to adjust things to meet the needs. And there were always individuals that would come in without a lot of background in an area, and pretty soon they were doing a marvelous job at what they were doing. I think principally that was because of the working for the national for the Supreme Body. It seemed that, like, even if we didn't have a lot of experience, you were empowered to do it. The needs of the faith were filled by people that often were not trained for those skills, and yet we could see the evidence of the success in developing the World Center, because so many areas developed in an incredible rate of speed, all the way from the refurbishing the buildings for new offices to new construction, the terraces of the Shrine of the Bab. At the same time, all of the activities of the council members until they got their own building. They had to redo the archives building, which is that beautiful neoclassic building, because they needed to safeguard these precious documents. They had to put in state-of-the-art temperature and weather control systems. I mean, being there and seeing all of these things is the only way that you can say almost nothing is impossible. If the faith needs it, it gets it done somehow, even to the amazement of the people that are doing it. So Rose's experience there was really a thing to be treasured within our memories and with our children, and memories of working with the members of the House of Justice, with Amatul Bahar, Khanum, with Hands of the Cause. And we would reflect very often what a great bounty it was to be surrounded by people whose names will live forever, because they were foundational to the development of the world community. And we're never really aware of the importance of the work we're doing, because it's not a place there for ego or for credit or applause. That sentiment doesn't seem to exist there for somehow. It's never a problem, as it is in many other situations, whether it's a banking system or store management, or there's always these competitions. But there were some many wonderful things that we witnessed, that we were instrumental in helping to develop, and it's almost like in a dream that we see all this happening, and we always know it didn't happen because I was there. It didn't happen because I contributed. That's not why it happens. There you can really see the spirit and the power of Baha'u'llah to develop his cause, because that, of course, is the cradle of this administration, the most holy spot on the planet, which in the bosom of that mountain lie the remains of His Holiness the Bab, the Blessed Beauty, the gardens that are developed around them, just give testimony to the grandeur of this revelation. It is something extraordinarily beautiful. I hope that every Baha'i will make a sincere effort to make their pilgrimage, because it is a priceless experience. It is something that we need to do to complete the process of growing spiritually into this cause. And for Rose and myself to have worked in two different areas of the World Center gave us a very broad view of the dimensions. And of course there were always other people that were very aware. The House of Justice always had people who out of their devotion and out of their humility, did great things without ever standing out. They stood out in our minds only because we loved the devotion with which they served. But no one could walk into a group and say, oh, there's so-and-so, this is so. Didn't consist on that. When the Supreme Body was in session and they were coming and going, everybody was aware of the members of the House of Justice. Hands of the Cause would come, some from other countries. We were all so in awe and so grateful to be able to get to know them, to see them actually in person. And those are the people that stood out because they hold special rank and position. But the rest of us were really like a little beehive, no personal importance, but yet indispensable in terms of the development. Mm-hmm. And that was that is the thing that rewards us, to know that all of the millions of Baha'is around the world, that such a small, literally a handful of people, have that incredible bounty, totally unmerited and undeserved, because no one deserves to go there. You go there by the grace of God and Baha'u'llah's bounty, but to become conscious of it. And we would hear people say, oh, before I got a chance to come here, I used to, when I was a teenager as a Baha'i, I would say, oh, if only Baha'u'llah would just let me go. And then one day they find themselves there, and they can't even believe that they're there, because they yearn so much to have that experience. And it is something very beautiful. It's just beautiful. I can't say more than that. It's just absolutely beautiful.
Well, I don't know whether Ernie is referring to visitors or workers.
So I'm referring to anyone that is a Baha'i that goes there on pilgrimage,
pilgrimage
to work there,
thing.
to serve there.
But working and serving there is work, you know. And although you are always aware that where you are, you know, you're in the midst of the holy gardens, of the buildings, everything is very special. Mm-hmm. But it is work, and you're expected to work. In other words, you're not there to pray, you know, be down on your knees praying all the time, or you have a job to do. And you are expected to do it. The system is not, does not permit someone to come there because he is so spiritual. You know, it's not based on that. It's based on other things. On your, first of all, your ability to do the job that's needed, whatever it is. There's all kinds of jobs. There are mechanics, there are engineers,
plumbers, roofers.
It takes a, you must know that the Baha'i Faith has bought all the housing for the people who work there. It has been purchased by the World Center, so they own buildings where the employees live. So these homes have to be taken care of. So they have to have maintenance of the homes
and all the maintenance.
Like a community.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And all the maintenance is really done by the Baha'is.
Baha'is do the
Nothing is farmed out to the outer community.
You know, painting, gardening, everything is done by the Baha'i Faith. So.
When I went there, Rose went first, and when I went there, I was really, I want to use the word amused, but that's not it. It was bemused, learning about, here were the 9 members of the Universal House of Justice. And people were coming to serve. They didn't have, like I said, the work was not farmed out to people from outside. And it would be house members that would be cleaning and painting, scrubbing the bathrooms, doing...
scrubbing the bathrooms.
Well, they were doing work preparing the housing, doing things. Hanu many times gave an example. She'd be walking through the gardens, there would be a piece of trash on the ground, and she would say, just a minute. She would go there and pick it up, and she says, this place needs to always be spotless. It is the holiest spot. I mean, they have that kind of humility. I don't think that any of them would refuse to do something that needed to be done on the basis of their station, because they have an administrative station at the very top. But I'm just saying that they are a lesson in humility to us, to see how they would help with whatever needed to be done. So there was no way that we could do something simply because we were following examples of excellence and humility and of service that you can't deny. You're part of it.
Actually, after I was there and I was helping to organize the secretariat, I arranged it so that the House members would have none of those things to do. In other words, I saw that they were relieved of everything except their own agenda and their meetings and their own work. So they would have, because for the earlier days that Ernie speaks of, they used to do everything.
There was no staff.
There was no staff. But when after I went, I brought in aides, assistants, that would be able to do all the other work. And it meant a lot of budgeting and pulling money from here and there to provide funds for these new people to come in. But I felt that it was essential that the House members be relieved of everything except taking care of their agenda, making decisions for the Baha'i World community. And that meant that they shouldn't have anything else to do except that, concentrate. And I think that by the time that I left 16 years later, that had been accomplished, that they had the policy manual. Each House member, by the time I left, had his own aide. And I also was the first to bring in male aid, men to work as aides, not just women. So we had a good mixture there, men and women working to assist the House members. And when the work got so heavy that some of the aides had assistants, and so that the secretariat functioned very professionally. But that was essential because with all the national assemblies forming and the Baha'i faith growing, the correspondence was heavy coming in. Hundreds of letters every day coming in from institutions, the assemblies, the groups, the individual believers. Every letter was answered. Every letter was answered. And all of that had to be organized, and it was.
You see, that's a thumbnail sketch of a relatively short period in which the World Center went from very few people and were able to expand rapidly because the need was so great. All of it was driven by the fact that the faith was growing around the world, especially in India. Then the houses of worship that were being built to comply with the beloved guardians' goals, the directions to establish these houses of worship on every continent. So all these things would drive the movement forward, and under the direction of the Supreme Body and the administrators that worked under them, it just, while we were there, it just seems to me, maybe it's just an impression, but it seemed to me that it always ran very smoothly. Not that there were not issues that had to be dealt with, but that the flow of the work, the expansion of the World Center seemed almost seamless. It just seemed like when a flower opens, it doesn't open all at once, but it begins to show and manifest its reality to the rest of the world. And no one's more conscious of that than the Israelis, because they have seen how it developed, and they are so proud of these gardens. They're so proud of the Queen of Carmel, which is the holy place, the resting place of the Bab. So we always had like a mirror among the Israeli people to bounce back, you know, their ideas, their thoughts. They often wondered, how is it that we are doing all these things, including the nature of the construction, which is probably, for a place like Israel, it is just incredible that so many tons of steel and the reinforced walls, so that this development would be good for hundreds and hundreds of years. The Israelis marveled at it, and Mr. Saba would say, well, it has to last 1,000 years.
I think another interesting thing is that I believe if you were to ask a Baha'i, if he or she knew the names of the 9 members of the House of Justice, they wouldn't be able to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are never out front showing themselves as, you know, I'm a member of the House of Justice. And yet these 9 members are elected every 5 years by the members of the National Assemblies of the world. And yet they are hardly known. So they don't seek personal gratification at all. It's hardly, oh, I might know 1 or 2 because I was, you know, they were Americans perhaps. But outside of that, most Baha'is, I bet if I asked you, you wouldn't know.
No, I couldn't.
Here, this is a world body, important world body that's hardly known by the members of its own community.
Mm.
They're functioning, but they don't seek personal
But it's part of the principles of the faith that the personality plays no role, that the entire system is driven by spiritual principles.
Yeah.
And we know that the Guardian laid out the administrative guidelines for Baha'i administration.
There's no vote for me.
And there's none of this, and it's exemplified to perfection among the members of the House of Justice. Even during the conventions which are for the election of the House of Justice, you will not see them there. They do not present themselves. They don't mix with the people until after the election, and then they come forward. So it's a very special experience. There are so many nuances that hinge on the spiritual principles that even when you're witnessing them, you're not totally conscious of it until afterwards. In reflection, you say to yourself, here's exemplified the beauty and the sacredness of this process of electing the supreme body to govern the affairs of the Baha'is of the world.
Well,
It's
it's
a beautiful
totally
thing.
different from the usual political system.
Yeah, because we don't have
See, in the
that.
political system that we're accustomed to, the person who's running for office will tout their own virtues and why you should vote for them, you know, and all of that, and have a whole contingent behind them, supporting them and pushing them. And this is so fascinating because none of that goes on. And yet, from the entire Baha'i world, the 9 members are elected, you know, by a secret vote, but members of the national assemblies of the world. The 9 members are elected.
When Rose was doing the conventions, they are, of course, for the purpose of the gathering of the representatives from the National Spiritual Assembly. Either sometimes the entire body comes, very often maybe 1 or 2 members can come to bring their vote, because sometimes they live in countries where travel is dangerous or they don't have the means, but all the National Assemblies will send a representative, so that you have this large number of people coming. Always there are occasions in which they'll dress in their national dress, and you see them coming up the pathway of the kings to visit, to do this visit to the shrine of the Bab, also entering the seat of the House of Justice. And when they come into the hall, because it's so big now, they could not do it except in large auditoriums or convention center. To see this large number of people, it's just awe-inspiring. It's awesome. And the Israelis are now getting a little more used to it, but it is just so incredible to see the people of the nations of the world coming to visit this holy site where the Lord of mankind has established as the spiritual heart and soul of this planet. And it is amazing to watch someone from a country that most of us wouldn't remember or know, even some of these countries, and they will announce the name of the country and the name of the person that's voting on behalf of the National Spiritual Assembly, and flash the name up on the screen. And it is such an incredible thing to see the world voting to maintain the administrative order of the Revelation of Baha'u'llah. It's an incredible sight.
I do remember when we had the first international convention there, that we brought in Baha'i experts from the world to help design the stage, the lighting, the sound. So we went first class. And some Israeli experts asked if they could come to see what we were doing. They had heard that there was a lot going on. And they were floored by it. They couldn't believe that we had such advanced technology, and from the Baha'i world coming in, these people, volunteers, you know,
Yeah.
not paid, doing all this work, setting up wonderful lighting and effects and sound systems. They just marveled at it. And I know that they took note of it. They learned a lot from it.
They learned from it.
They learned from it. And
Yeah.
in fact, they approached some of the people and asked if they would be willing to come and set up their convention. And of course
Yeah.
they said no. You know, we're volunteers and we just
Yeah.
come for this. They tried to hire them. Yeah. So it felt good because it showed that the Baha'i faith had professionals, that it had the highest ethics and the latest technology. That we weren't just, you know, going to bumble in there and do a poor job. And then we weren't going to set up a tent, you know, and have a revival.
At the last convention that you did, they even came in wanting to buy all of the props and all.
They did, actually, some convention man, that organizer,
One of the biggest ones in Israel.
came in and he made an offer on buying all of our equipment and things. We said, fine, well, give us a price, you know. We won't need it. We won't need all of this. We don't want to store it. So I believe we made a deal with them, you know, to buy it out. But they were very impressed. And I felt good about it because it set the faith in a great light.
It did.
We were not backwards.
They have a high respect for the faith.
Yeah.
For
It was a great convention, the first international convention held there, and it was done professionally. It was really
well,
good.
you did, what, 4? Did you do 4 of them?
I did 4 eventually,
conventions,
yeah.
yes.
That was the first one.
But each one became bigger and bigger because I know that when we left, the last convention had national assemblies from places like Mongolia and Kazakhstan and many of these little stands that were under Russia before, for the first time, because during that period when the Iron Curtain collapsed, and all of these places were open to the faith, and it was just amazing to see people that you would never get to see in your lifetime coming together from every corner, and the only ones that didn't come, for which there were tears, and it just even to talk about it touches me, because the members of the House of Justice had asked that a special flower arrangement be brought in. There were 99 roses in what became like a huge shrub of roses, and it was hard not to break down.
The eyes of Iran.
We were grieving for them, and the fact that they could not come. So there were many things. I think it would take a lifetime to just write down everything that you witnessed there, because while at the time you were not that aware, with the passage of time, you look back and you say to yourself, what an extraordinary experience this is.
I believe they made a video of it.